Welcome back to Historic Investments. We've all heard about the iconic Savage 45, the gun that almost beat out the Colt 1911. If you're a student of this history, you know that it actually went through a number of iterations. But the question is, do you really know enough to make an informed buying decision? Well, hopefully you will after this video. So let's jump right in. A few years ago, Ian McCullough made an excellent video detailing the history and disassembly of the Savage 45, as can be visited on his site, Forgotten Weapons. The point of this video is not to regurgitate that material. The point is to give you some collecting tips. So let's just go through just a little bit of the history because it actually relates to the finish and the details you need to know. The military wanted 200 pistols. Savage sent 200 pistols. Supposedly only 195 were received. So Savage made another 5 pistols. At that point, the military realized that there were no safety markings on the gun, a situation it found unacceptable. So the guns were returned to Savage for remarking. Now the curious thing here is that instead of all 200 pistols going back to Savage, only 128 made it. So Savage found itself in the position of having to make another 72 pistols. These extra pistols were actually finished somewhat differently. The original pistols were finished in a very high polish, nicely buffed blue. The second batch of pistols were finished with a matte finish. Regardless of the batching, the guns were then stamped safe and fire after the guns were finished. What else should you notice about these guns? Well, let's take a look at the more common highly polished gun. At first you might think it looks like a reblue. I mean, it looks almost like those early high standard trophies with this iridescent high polished blue, maybe similar to some of the Webleys, but indeed this is the way the guns were shipped to the military. If you look at the hammer, it's got a little bit of a different finish. It's more of a uniform heat treated finish. And some of the small parts are color case hardened, including the trigger and right here the magazine release. The other thing that you should notice is that the original pistols had a full slide legend with a 2-line address suffixed by in much larger font, caliber 45. Magazines were serial numbered to the guns, and as you may or may not be aware, there were 2 types of magazines. Some of the magazines had a fully blued body. Others, for example, in this later batch pistol, had a body that was in the white. But you really need to know more than that. So let's just examine this first early pistol in a little bit more detail. The gun's been actually field tested. There should be some holster wear in the usual places. And there's usually a little bit of fading on the case-colored parts. For example, the face of the trigger, and of course there's going to be fading on the face of the magazine release. Before going further and even examining some of the disassembled parts, look at the grips. These grips were fraught with problems, and they usually split off right in this location, actually on both sides. So when the gun's in your hand, just look at this portion of the grip to make sure that the panel is nice and intact and not repaired. There have been a number of reproduction grips on the market, some of excellent quality, but ideally you should have grips of walnut, usually darker walnut, with some handling marks. In some cases, and I'm going to pull this later pistol here just to show you, in some cases the grips will be marked with a rack number, which is completely independent of the serial number of the pistol. The next thing you should do is check for the serial number. Well, you turn the gun around in your hands and you say, there's no serial number here. All right, so let's rack the gun back, drop the magazine, and all of these guns had their magazine's serial number to the pistol. This magazine with a blued body is serial number 87. Okay, now, while it's cocked back, let's take a look at the cocking piece. Hopefully you can see it. It's serial number 87. Is that the serial number of the pistol? No, because you know the serial number is that of the frame. So let's get to the frame serial number. So we're going to move this back a little bit, take out the cocking piece, okay, which sometimes takes a little bit of finagling. There we go. And then let's drop the sight bar out. Okay. All right. There we go. Now the sight bar is out. Then the next thing we need to do is to bring the slide forward along with the, which will allow the barrel and the recoil spring to come out. And there we have a basic field strip gun. Let's take a look at the sight bar. Hopefully you can see that the sight bar is serial numbered on its lower surface. Yes, indeed. This one is 87. The next thing that we need to do is to say, does it have a matching slide? Well, the slide is also, it's internally numbered. Look right inside this groove. Here it is, the forward groove. You should be able to see it. If not, we'll have a separate insert, serial number 87. What about the barrel? Yes, indeed. The barrel is serial numbered. This is the internal lug. A little bit of grease is congealed in this area, but hopefully you can see it is serial number 87. So far, so good. Well, what about the pistol serial number? Well, that's the frame. The frame is numbered in the forward section. Here it is. Hopefully you can make that out. Serial number 87. So you need to disassemble the pistol in order to confirm the serial number. What other parts are serial numbered? Well, each of the grip panels is serial numbered, along with the slide release, which is internally numbered. So let's just stop for a moment. I'll take the grips off and give you a peek at that. So now I've popped off the grips. You can see that each panel is numbered. Again, these are the areas to look at for cracks. This one's got a little crack right here. You can see right in this area, this grip is cracked. Is it cracked all the way through? Well, I couldn't see it from the other side, but it wouldn't surprise me. This is the slide release. You can see the slide release is also serial numbered 87. So quite a few of the small parts are 87. And let me just underscore that regardless of the magazine type, whether it's a blued body or an into white body, they are fully numbered to the gun. Very unfortunately for Savage, the 1907 did not test particularly well against the Colt. Neither did a later, heavier slide version known as the 1910, nor a completely revamped version known as the 1911. In the end, the government selects the Colt, and Savage is offered the chance to buy its rejected pistols back for about 10 cents on the dollar. It then refurbishes the guns. These are the pistols that are most frequently seen on the market now, and the easiest way to immediately spot a refurbished gun is to look at the slide rib. Original guns, as previously pointed out, will have a 2-line address suffixed by caliber 45. The refurbished guns will only have the Cal 45 on the slide rib. The safe and fire markings are usually a little bit less distinct on the refurbished guns. As far as the internals are concerned, those are all the same because Savage didn't remark the internals. So before making your final decision, you should make sure that the gun functions properly. So, of course, you cock the gun. You make sure that the safety functions properly. You make sure that the slide holds open after the last shot. You check the bore to make sure that it's got hopefully a shiny bore with good rifling. You make sure that the magazine releases properly. Sometimes these can be a little bit sticky, particularly when the serial number of the magazine does not match the serial number of the gun. And you make sure that the slide release on the right side here works properly, releases the slide, and, of course, that when you pull the trigger, the hammer falls. Thank you once again for having joined us at Historic Investments. Hopefully now you know a little bit more about the Savage 45, at least the model 1907, whether you're buying it for your own collection or part of your investment portfolio. The important thing is you know the right questions to ask before making your purchase decision. Thanks again, and good collecting.